Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and I gotta say, history really does tend to rhyme with itself. Like, we have seen this movie before. Yes, this time it's a different catalyst because this is a sequel of some sort, but we've seen this movie before. This has happened before. My God, I understand there's blood in the streets, people panicking. That's not new. That's not a new thing to humanity. Like, it's not like this is the first time this has happened to markets and people losing their ever-loving minds. But it does not make logical sense to be losing your mind over the price volatility that we're seeing. It's frankly not surprising, given the severity of these potential outcomes as a result of the tariff shenanigans that's currently going on. Now, markets tanked overnight into this morning. There's a reason, though, that we've gotten a little bit of a relief as of the time that I'm recording this, and I want to highlight exactly why that is. Doesn't mean that the bottom is necessarily in yet, although I'm not concerned regardless. And also, I'm going to share with you perspective from a few different XRP chart analysts, specifically about XRP, and it's incredible. Like, despite the action that we're seeing in the world of crypto, XRP is still incredibly well positioned, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in this video. But it just my humble opinion, it does not make sense to be freaking out over what is happening right here, right now. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 11:04 a.m. Central Time, Monday, April 7th, 2025. XRP is at $1.87, but look at the 24-hour chart here. It got down to $1.63 this morning, and ended up bouncing as high as $1.97. Now again, back down to $1.87. More on the catalyst for that particular movement, because that's a pretty big swing in a fairly short period of time, down from $1.63 to $1.97. Now it's a little bit lower. More on that in a second. Here you have Bitcoin, $78,554. And it moved up at the same time, because the same catalyst, frankly, got a size $80,300, currently at $78,556. Now, and as I flash back and forth between the 24-hour charts for XRP and Bitcoin, you will notice these are the same damn chart, because the reason XRP is falling has nothing to do with XRP specifically, which is to say, XRP's fundamentals have never been stronger than they are at this exact moment. This is just price volatility due to macro factors. It does not make sense to be panic selling. I mean, you do whatever you want. I don't know your specific circumstances. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing my opinion. It does not make sense to be panic selling because of things unrelated to XRP. I'm going to insist, it just doesn't make sense to be investing in crypto in the stock market if you don't have a long time horizon. It just doesn't make sense to do it. Because stuff like this is always going to pop up from time to time. It's always going to be a different catalyst, and it doesn't matter. But yes, people are fearful. Here's the Crypto Fear and Greed Index, 23 out of 100. We're back in extreme fear. I'll be really curious to see once this thing updates, because it updates only once every 24 hours. Next update is 7 hours and 54 minutes from now. I'll be very curious to see where this lands. I actually don't know, because yes, we just saw a little bit of a rebound, but a lot can happen for the rest of the day before this thing updates. So I don't know if it's going to be a little higher or a little bit lower. If I had to guess, I'd say a little bit lower, but I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the day. So we shall see here. Now, I shared this post at the end of one of my videos yesterday, but I want to share this again because it's highly relevant, and I want to make sure that a lot of people see this just to highlight the point that this is not the first time we've seen something like this. What was the last catalyst? It was COVID. It was the pandemic. The post on your screen here with a picture that I took at my local Sam's Club. This is March 13th, 2020. That's when I posted this, 3:04 p.m. Central Time. And I shared this picture of an empty produce section. I wrote, I went to a local Sam's at 2 p.m. today. There were no parking spaces, no unused shopping carts, and no produce. I do mean that literally. Zero. People are fearful. This is not rational. Consider this irrationality if you're scared of the current XRP price. Won't stay like this. Now, of course, that aged very well. And by the way, here's another picture that I took. This is where the shopping carts are supposed to be. There were none, because there's a bunch of maniacs in the store. And it's aged very well, of course. It was just pandemonium. Pandemonium. It was people freaking out because of a macro event. Didn't mean that fundamentals of XRP were gone. They were only getting stronger. And this is before the lawsuit, by the way. And so the price of XRP before this fell, I'm pulling from memory, but I think it was probably maybe like 25 cents. It was probably somewhere around there. And it fell ultimately down to 10 cents. And then it hovered around 15 cents for a while. People freaking out, panic selling XRP. Was that the best move? Well, probably not, because from that 10-cent low in March of 2020, we ended up getting, what, a 34-fold increase from there when XRP peaked in January of this year? A 34-fold increase from that level. So would it have been better to buy or would it, at that point, or would it have been better to sell at that point? But people are so short-term oriented, they're scared that it's just going to go lower. It's going to go. But the fundamentals haven't changed, so it won't go to zero. Why would it go to zero? What, and stocks are going to go to zero too? We're just going to cease to have an economy and the stock market's no longer going to exist anymore? No. We have over 100 years worth of data that shows when there are macro events like this that spook markets, things tank, and then the people that are smart and control their emotions, they do fine. They're the ones that do fine. And so last night I shared this post. This will all blow over whether it happens quickly or takes a while to resolve. I'll own the same quantity of stocks in crypto in the meantime because this won't matter big picture. Just have a long enough time horizon and everything's fine. Selling in panic is ridiculous. And folks, I firmly believe that. My unsophisticated investment method, it turns out it works really well. And I do the same thing with stocks and crypto. I just have broad exposure to markets. And after I buy stuff, I just hold and I do nothing. Whether it's a good day or a bad day in the market, I do nothing. And it doesn't emotionally impact me because I know it does not matter. It just does not matter. I mean, God, and if you think that the markets are going to go to zero and stay there forever, we got bigger problems if you're right, and I'm not going to care then. Okay, you're talking about collapse of the world and civil society. Like, I'm not going to care at that point. So this is not something I'm losing sleep over, folks. I'm having a great day. Like, there's no reason to be negative or scared over this stuff. It just doesn't make logical sense. Now, there is this post from Patrick Bet David. He shared this with his 1.3 million followers. He's a host of the PBD podcast, very famous dude. And he shared this video. It's almost 5 minutes long. And the key point in this, he was highlighting why it doesn't make sense to panic sell. And he shared a story that one of his friends who had investments in the stock market that were worth $10 million before things crashed, COVID, March 2020. And he said that his friend lost half of that as the market tanked. So his investments in the stock market went from 10 million to 5 million. And this guy sold. He couldn't take it anymore. He had to get out of the market. And inside of a few months, it rebounded. And Patrick Bet David said, hey, yeah, my friend, he lost $5 million as a result of that. He lost $5 million because he panic sold and couldn't wait. That's the type of stuff that happens. Now, I'm kind of surprised that somebody that accumulated that much wealth acted that emotionally, but wow. I mean, I guess people do it. And so I reposted that video and I said, everyone should watch this video. This is the same message I keep preaching. Panic selling doesn't tend to work out for investors. So at a time when XRP's never been so well positioned and it just broke out of a 7-year symmetrical triangle, just hit a new all-time high just a few months ago, fundamentals never stronger, never more wallets, never more network activity, never more people building on top of the XRP ledger. This is the time where it makes sense to panic sell. Not just the lawsuit. This is the time now. And people did panic sell with other things like the lawsuit obviously coming down. But that wasn't the end of the world. And none of the other macro events, COVID wasn't the end of the world for XRP. None of the other stuff going back over a decade. None of that was the end of the world. We know that because time has passed. But this is the time where it does make sense to panic sell. Are you sure about that? You sure about that? Because I don't think so, folks. Oh, and then the decoupling narrative. I made a video talking about this. I said my piece on this. Because, when the tariff scares started last week, markets tanked, especially the stock market. Crypto went down a little bit, and then the next day it was in the green. And so people were like, see, crypto's decoupling. Blah, 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 blah. And then I made a video, I was like, not so fast. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. And so I wrote in this post this morning, I said, I'm hoping people are done with the crypto decoupling from equities narrative now. Declaring crypto decoupled from equities based on 1 day of data was stupid. And it was stupid. It didn't make sense. It never made sense. Now I said, if that's the case, super duper love to see it, but I'm going to see way more of a track record than this. And admittedly, I still don't know why crypto happened to perform well in the face of all of that on that particular day, but it did. And it was fun to see. And Xrp was what, like $2.15 or something like that. It's fun to see. And it's an oddity. I acknowledge that. But does one day of oddity mean, does that equate to a trend? No, it absolutely does not. And that's why all these people rushing to say, see, it's decoupling and Bitcoin's God now. No, get the hell out of here. Stop being an idiot stick. That doesn't make any damn sense. And there's this post from Anthony Pompliano he pretty well nailed. He says, the undisciplined, over-levered, and short-term oriented panic, while the patient, unlevered, and long-term oriented feel nothing. Bam. Spot on. That's why I had to share that. I'm the latter. I don't feel any negative. I'm just having fun being invested. Like, I'm excited to see what happens once this whole, all this nonsense blows over, which it most certainly will. I'm sure within the coming months. We'll see how long it takes. Whatever the time period ends up being, though. What I'm sure of is we're going to get over this. It's like this is the end of the world here. And I really do believe, this is my strong suspicion, that all this tariff stuff, I think it's just a negotiating tactic from Trump, for better or worse. I do think that's what this is. And look at this headline from New York Post, and this is from yesterday. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick reveals 50 nations reached out to negotiate tariffs, warns there is no postponing. And I think that's the point all along, and we'll see to what degree Trump, this plays out like he's hoping, but I think that's the intent. I don't think Trump is actually going to allow the world to stay lit on fire forever, even though that's effectively what's happening in markets anyway, right? But here's one example of this tactic seemingly working here. Look at this headline. And this is from today. And this is from Euronews. Von der Leyen offers Trump 040 tariffs deal on all industrial goods. This is the type of thing that Trump's looking for. So it's a starting of a negotiation. Europe is always ready for a good deal, Ursula von der Leyen says, as trade tensions with the United States reach all-time high. The European Commission has offered the United States a deal to remove tariffs on all industrial goods as part of the trade negotiations, Ursula von der Leyen has said, while stressing her intention to retaliate against Donald Trump's policies should talks fail. Okay, and so there you go. Donald Trump, he's all about the negotiations. He wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. So it's not surprising to see a businessman using strong-arm tactics as he's used throughout his career here. He just happens to be president now. So whether you like that or don't like that, I'm not getting into that. That's outside the scope of this video. I'm just saying it's probably what he's doing here. And he's probably willing to. It's just a question of to what degree he's willing to bend, but he's going to bend on some stuff, obviously. He doesn't expect to get literally 100% of what he's asserting that he wants. That's a starting point for negotiations here. Like, this is going to go away, folks, one way or another. And I understand you can argue he's playing with fire. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, there's a chance this all goes off the rails. But I don't think he actually will insist on what his stated starting point is for negotiation. I don't think that's the case. Then we also had this here. This is from Seth Golden. Actually, maybe I moved a tab. I wanted here first. There's a post from Seth Golden here. Oh, that's right, though. Maybe it was over here. No, sorry. I thought I had a tab in this. So there was a rumor that leaked. Maybe I do have it just out of order or something like that. There's a rumor that leaked that Trump actually is going to delay the implementation of these tariffs by 90 days. And that's the reason that XRP and Bitcoin and markets went up. So actually, right before I started recording, I checked the stock market and I checked a bunch of different indexes. I looked at the Dow Jones. I looked at the Russell 2000. I looked at the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, and a couple of them were down a little bit. One was up, actually. I forget which one. So basically, anyway, the market was about flat. That's the point. After all of volatility and everything tanking this morning, this rumor came out, true or false, and the market came back up. So when you see here, XRP was at $1.75, and then it rocketed up quickly up to $1.97. That's why. And then it came back down a little bit. That was the reason why. So anyway, there's this post from Seth Golden, and he's a hedge fund consultant and chief market strategist at Finham Group, and he wrote, White House consideration to pause tariff proceedings for 90 days is likely not fake, but news they did not want leaked in order to sustain maximum pressure at least for the next 24 hours as they rationalize and understand they can achieve tariff concessions from EU, but not VAT. Then there was also this post from Charles Gasparino. He thinks there's some internal strife here in the Trump administration. And he wrote, generally, when you get conflicting statements from the White House, it's a sign of civil war. Not saying I have reporting suggesting such, but you can see how the lines could be drawn. Hassett and Besant advocating for negotiations, hence a pause. Lutnick and Navarro, just the opposite. It's time to be real careful on loosely sourced stuff. And so I can't tell you whether or not that is true, if there's anything to that specifically, but the market seems to have responded to that. There's also this, though, and this is freaking hilarious. So you know how after last week, Trump put the news out, hey, here's the tariff situation, reciprocal tariffs, the whole thing, and that set markets on fire. And then the next day, remember China came out and like, oh yeah, you're gonna reciprocal tariff us, and then they decided that they were gonna impose an additional 34% increase in tariffs on the United States. Remember that? So they were trying to fight back there. Turns out Trump didn't take kindly to that. Look at this post this morning from President Trump. He shared this is an excerpt from it, but he shared this on Truth Social. He wrote, if China does not, it's hilarious. If China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, 2025, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Just, you gotta appreciate the hilariousness of this, right? Like, this is just, oh yeah. It's one upsmanship. This is hilarious. And so, like, you can argue, like, who would this be worse for? And I know you might be looking around items like at your home or office and be like, everything's made in China. Well, it's not literally true that everything's made in China, but obviously a ton of stuff. I'm not disputing that. But I have a suspicion, as bad as this would be for America, this is probably worse for China. They might be bluffing. And so I looked up, because I was curious. Okay, I was wondering, what do global exports from China to the United States look like? And the most recent data I could find was for 2023. And the answer was that out of all of China's global exports, 14.8% go to the United States. That's a massive percentage. So who's in the weaker position here? Clearly, Trump believes China is in the weaker position. And the thing about Trump here is, like, yes, this is a negotiating tactic, but I do believe he'd follow through on this because he believes that he's in the winning position, or else he wouldn't have made this. Because, in the case, I don't think he's bluffing is the point, because in the event he were, if he were in the weaker position, then he'd have to cave. And he's not the type that likes to cave. So I do believe he'd follow through on this. Something's going to happen here. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's just freaking buck wild. It is absolutely buck wild and hilarious. And he did warn. He said for anybody that retaliates, after he warned, hey, here's what we're going to do with reciprocal tariffs. Trump did say, if any nation, and I'm paraphrasing, but if any nation is going to respond to this in a retaliatory way, then we're going to respond in a retaliatory way as well. And so he's following through on what he said he did. What he do? There you go. Now, as far as this move, somebody here, this account DB with 455,900 followers, wrote 10% move in NASDAQ, 8% move in S&P 500 on what appears to be a headline someone made up and spread like wildfire on Twitter. And of course, what he's referencing there is this potential 90-day pause on tariffs. True, not true. I don't pretend to know at this particular juncture in time, but markets responded favorably. And so the blockchain backer reposted that, and he said, it's the shorts closing. Next dip is likely the one they long. And so I did check out his video this morning. I'm sure many of you heard it already. A great video, and his perspective effectively, part of it anyway, I think it's key takeaways. Although he can't know for sure, he suspects that, with certain assets falling below like 200-day moving average, including XRP, so on and so forth, he thinks that it's more so because of macro environment. He didn't seem to think that this is something that's going to prevent us from ultimately having a recovery here. And that's a message that I'm seeing from a ton of analysts that I follow this morning. Like, this is not exactly the end of the world. And so there's this post from chart analyst Dom. He was talking about Bitcoin order book update. And this is from this morning at 10:03 a.m. And he said, Thank these stacked spot orders, or we would have been at $70,000 in no time. Binance replenished their ammo after $75,000 was hit. As I have now stated for over a month, still massive support under the idea of a local low is in or is coming in somewhere down to 70,000. Losing $70,000 is the first technical shift into a bear trend after 2 years. All right, well, that's key level to watch, and let's hope we stay above that, and we certainly are at the moment I'm recording this anyway. Here's what he had to say about XRP order flow update, and this is at 9:54 a.m. this morning, so just about an hour and a half ago. Over $100 million of XRP was market sold over the last 12 hours by the 4 largest spot exchanges. Bitstamp is back with their bizarre flows as they started buying once the dump began. BitGet as well started buying mid-dump. All other exchanges were in lockstep with the selling. But then there's also this. Here we go. Bitcoin and XRP both perfectly hit their yearly VWAPs. I've talked about these levels for months now and how they are the true bull market bands. Never have we broke these and not entered a bear market. Okay, so still sitting pretty at this particular moment, and we'll see what happens here. But I don't know how low this market's going to go here, but I still got to believe like at some point you find bottom. And because this is a true macro event that's causing all this, it's not like this price volatility and collapse is happening in some sort of vacuum. It's happening as a result of genuine panic from humans the world over. It's in every market on the damn planet that you're seeing chaos. And so, assuming indeed my hunch is correct and this gets cleaned up, whether it happens sooner or later, and the tariff fears go away, why wouldn't markets rebound? I mean, unless something's truly broken as a result of this, if it lags on too long. But I don't. My point is, I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think things are going to lag on so long that you're going to break a ton of businesses. I mean, we'll see. I could be wrong about that, but I'm skeptical of that being the case. Here's what chart analyst Credible Crypto had to say about XRP. And he posted this morning, 3:41 a.m. It says, despite the higher time frame bearish divergences on XRP/ETH, the pairing continues to hold up very well. XRP has hit my downside target on the USD pairing at $1.60, but the XRP ETH pairing has barely moved to the downside in that same window of time. And so I got to pause and note here. Credit where it's due. Credible Crypto is, with over the last few weeks, he's been talking about this move for XRP down to like a $1.60 range, and he's just about the only analyst I followed that was saying this is going to happen. And it has happened. XRP got down to a $1.63 this morning. So credit where it's due. Now, of course, I know that some are going to say, well, yeah, but that's because of what happened with tariffs, and he couldn't have known that was going to happen. Okay, fair enough for you to bring that up. I will just say the typical response from chart analysts that I see when such an assertion is made is that they will typically argue, and I don't know that, I'm not to put words in Credible Crypto's mouth, but typically what I see when such assertions are made is they're saying, yeah, that was the catalyst, but if that weren't the catalyst, it would have been a different catalyst because this is what the charts were showing. That's the type of argument that I tend to see from analysts. So I don't know if that's what Credible Crypto would say, but I tend to see that type of argument. He thought that this is going to happen regardless. And either way, again, credit where it's due, it did happen. Anyway, then he said, if we do reclaim the range, break back above $2 to $2.20, and the PO3 on XRP USD pairing is going to play out, then it may mean that XRP is even stronger than originally anticipated, and the XRP ETH pairing may not get a larger pullback after all. The alternate is that XRP breaks down from the current buy zone, and that weakness might then translate to the XRP ETH chart. One of the two scenarios I lean towards the former. He says, of the two scenarios, I lean towards the former, meaning extra bullish XRP ETH pairing. Simply because between XRP and ETH, XRP has displayed much more impulsive price action prior to this market-wide correction than Ethereum. Assuming we hold the $1.60 zone, this impulsive price action should continue on a market-wide rally. This correction down to $1.60-ish was a window of opportunity for Ethereum to hold relatively strong while XRP dropped, sending XRP ETH down, but we didn't see that. For now, going to simply keep observing until we get more price action to work with. And so there you go. That's one more thing you can look at to just observe. Wow, XRP is still ridiculously strong. Even a moment like this where it pulled back against the dollar, of course, that's not surprising. But relative to other crypto assets, in particular here talking about Ethereum, we didn't see that. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? Like, and I'll just say again, by the time this whole cycle's over, we will look back and just recognize that XRP made both Bitcoin and Ethereum its little bitches. Like that is fully what I anticipate. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.